Council Member, Agency Director, Authority Member Molly.
Present.
Mann.
Present.
Underwood Jacobs.
Present.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chairman Christ.
Present.
Mayor Chairman Paris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The invocation tonight is the Spiritual Assembly of Baha'i in Lancaster.
O my God, verily these servants are turning to thee, supplicating thy kingdom of mercy. Verily they are attracted by thy holiness and set aglow with the fire of thy love, seeking confirmation from thy wondrous kingdom and hoping for attainment in thy heavenly realm. Verily they long for the descent of thy bestowal, desiring illumination from the sun of reality. O Lord, make them radiant lamps, merciful signs, fruitful trees, and shining stars. May they come forth in thy service and be connected with thee by the bonds and ties of thy love, longing for the lights of thy favor. O Lord, make them sign of guidance, standards of thine immortal kingdom, waves of the sea of thy mercy, mirrors of the light of thy majesty. Verily thou art generous, verily thou art merciful, verily thou art the precious and beloved. Abdul Baha.
Thank you. Raj, you want to do the pledge?
Yes, sure. Right hand over your heart. Please join me for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, what do I have here? I probably shouldn't leave that here. Are you Jasmine? Is that you? Oh, I'm sorry. There she is. I thought you would be in the front row. Come on down. You look a little not to be above. Well, how are you?
Nice
Meet you. Come on up. Jasmine Cisneros?
Yeah.
Of Lake Los Angeles is a 14-year-old Antelope Valley champion. On July 2nd, 2016, Jasmine won the gold medal in the intermediate female 119-pound division title at the Junior Olympics in Dallas. So that's for the whole shooting match, right?
Yeah.
So did you knock her out? Oh, okay. Although initially a little nervous at the larger sizes of her competition, just how big were they?
Oh, she was big. Yeah, she was bigger than, she was big.
Well, Jasmine remained confident in boxing against each of her opponents and was able to move into the championship round. With confidence and skill, Jasmine won a unanimous decision and the gold medal. So where's the medal?
Oh, I don't have it.
You didn't bring the medal?
No.
Jasmine is now ranked number one in the nation under her weight division of 119 pounds. She has aspirations to run on the cross-country team and play football in high school and be a quarterback of the football team. Jasmine also hopes to participate in the 2020 Olympics. Right?
Yeah.
So when do you have time for ballet lessons?
Oh, I
Okay, we have a certificate for you.
Thank you.
You're pretty cool. This is really
Thank you.
So how do we give her a scholarship and hold it until she gets to college?
We have good accountants. They'll just keep it as
Okay.
accounts
So
payable.
I'm going to give you a $1,000 scholarship, but you got to go to college.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. That's really cool.
Thank you.
So is there a big girls boxing in the community?
A big, like, what do you
A
think?
lot of people doing it?
Girls? Not really.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of boys, but not.
Rhonda, you need to get together with her. I'm serious. I mean, it seems to me you have a lot of confidence, right?
Yeah.
I like this idea. We could be the women's boxing capital of the world, right? And you would lead us there. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Good. Let's get a picture. So, who's that over there? Is that your mom?
Yeah, that's my mom.
Think she should get a picture?
Yeah.
Come on down. You got your speech ready now? You didn't write your speech? You don't have to give a speech. But did you see that? She goes, I didn't write it. She was ready to do the speech. That's terrific. Hi, how are you? Here, you hold that.
Thank you.
Okay, is that the rest of your family?
Yeah, and my uncle.
Okay, well, let's get him in. Okay. Great.
Thank you so much.
So, Allison, you see your associate over there trip the mayor?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you see your associate over there trip the mayor?
Apparently there was nothing to see there.
All right, we have a presentation. Patty Garibay is going to do it, is that right?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Commissioners. Oh. Well, we started off on the wrong foot, but we'll get better. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Commissioners. I'm delighted to be here tonight, and I'm excited to share some really good news with all of you. The City of Lancaster was recently recognized by the United States Environmental Protection Agency as a Green Power Community. The Green Power Community designation was created to recognize communities who voluntarily use and support the increased use of green energy, such as solar and wind power. Through the city's energy provider, Lancaster Choice Energy, residents and businesses here in Lancaster are currently using over 15 million kilowatt hours of green energy annually. But now on to the exciting news. We are the first city in Southern California to receive this designation. We're among a very small but very elite group of cities who are being recognized for their efforts. The Green Power Partnership has recognized 60 cities nationwide and 1,400 partners, so it's a pretty small group of people that are doing some pretty amazing things. This recognition is another example of how the City of Lancaster is leading the way in green energy, how we're subsequently improving the quality of life for our residents through better air quality, lower greenhouse gas emissions, as well as more sustainable energy practices. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
You know, I was at a conference at Irvine last week on hydrogen-powered fuel cells, really kind of cool stuff. And there was people from all over the country, and they were really excited about Lancaster's community choice. So it was, we're making a name in places I never expected to. So it was really gratifying to hear that. Thought I'd pass that on. Okay, city manager, anything to be removed?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a
Second that?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? It's unanimous. Any items on the consent calendar you want to pull?
I pull CC8.
Let the record reflect I want to recuse myself for CC8. I have a conflict in regards to property ownership in the vicinity.
As I do in Palmdale. So I'd like to make a motion approving the consent calendar as currently comprised, pulling
See how he said
CC8.
Palmdale and then just sped right up, right past it?
Trying to-
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Let the record reflect that the Vice Mayor and Councilman Mann have left the room. Is there a motion on CC8?
I'll make the motion to accept or approve CC8.
Is there a second?
Second that?
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Okay, you guys. The Vice Mayor and the Councilman are back at the dais. PH1.
No speaker cards?
Mayor, I also, this is the same property that was noticed in the previous consent calendar. I have a conflict with property owned on Beach, so I'll excuse myself.
Just how did you get all this property? You
No,
were on
it's
the
only
planning commission for a really long time.
one location, 2 items that happen to be this conflict.
All right, just doing a little due diligence here. Any speaker cards?
None.
Is there a motion?
We need to open the public hearing.
Oh, let's open the public hearing. If I just read it, I'd be fine, wouldn't I? We're going to waive the staff report. Now is there a motion?
I'll move PH1.
Close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Let's vote. Oh, close the public hearing, and it's unanimous. Okay.
Ken Mann abstaining.
And Ken Mann abstained. Okay, PH2. We'll open the public hearing, and we'll hear from Brian Ludicky.
No speaker cards.
I know, but I'm kind of curious about this.
Mayor Paris and members of the City Council, before you this evening is an ordinance that would delete the city's current minimum parking requirements in its commercial and its commercial plan development zones. This is an item that we have been working on for several months with our Planning Commission, and it stems from research that we've done and some of the discussions that we've had with both owners, managers, and developers of commercial property, and some of the research, obviously, that we've also done in our community. Minimum parking requirements can be looked at from a number of perspectives, but we think that the one that's most important for our city is to look at it from an economic perspective. So when we look at that, we've learned 3 key things in terms of, should off-street parking be something that the city requires, or should it be something that the private market decides how much it needs to provide? And those 3 key things that we've learned are, first and foremost, that parking is really an economic decision. Second, that tenant requirements really take precedence in the determination of how much off-street parking is really required, to a greater extent than I really realized, and perhaps a greater extent than some other people present might realize. And finally, one thing that we're really learning, especially over the last couple of years, is that city parking requirements can really limit flexibility and options for economic growth in a city if they're not properly dealt with. The first thing that I would really address is that as we look at this idea of economics versus sort of an arbitrary idea of what convenience is, we spend a lot of time currently enforcing our current parking requirements. This is the book that we have. Within that book is a sheet for every single commercial shopping center that we have in the city, large and small. And if you were to look at that, contained within it is a fairly complicated system of figuring out if there's adequate parking or not adequate parking based on our code. I know that in the years that I've been here, there have even been situations where an owner of a center was willing to leave areas unoccupied in a shopping center so that they could meet our parking requirements and allow certain tenants to be located there. When we look at economics as far as the parking, one thing that we need to keep in mind is that, and I think this quote from Donald Shoup, who's a professor at UCLA, is great. He says, just because parking is free doesn't mean that no one has to pay for it. And when we start looking at the requirement for parking, we have to say, okay, who's in a better position to really determine what's needed? Someone who understands their customers and understands what it costs to provide that parking, or a rather arbitrary standard that is applied citywide for reasons that might not always be appropriate. I included, if you see on the right-hand side of this slide, over the last couple of years there's been quite a discussion, and in fact we got into this same discussion at one of our Planning Commission meetings on the whole issue of Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is well known for minimizing the amount of parking that it provides. It does this for a couple of reasons. It does it, number one, because that ties directly to what its price point and its marketing strategy is, and number two, it allows it to go into sites that it might not otherwise be able to achieve. And that really gets to an important point that we have discovered as we've gone through this effort. And that is the second point that I brought up. Tenant requirements matter more. As we did research on this, I was not allowed to name who this commercial center developer is, but this person has developed a number of centers within our city over the years. And I asked this person, how do you determine parking? What's the city's requirement versus a tenant requirement? And he said tenant requirements are what matter in a leasing decision. He said city parking requirements are secondary. He said, quite frankly, and he said this as kindly as he could, you know, your requirements can't help us, but they can hurt us if they create a situation where we have a tenant who wants a particular location and your requirements prevent that from happening. And the reason that this is so important, and I've included, and I've got a couple of more on the next slide, most of the tenants that you see out there now, particularly if they're national chains, they know what their demands are for parking. But they know it in a sense that they want to be flexible about it. If you look at this one, for instance, on AutoZone, and I apologize that the slide is not big enough, but they basically say, hey, we need somewhere between 25 and 40 parking spaces. Why the range? Because what matters to them even more than the amount of parking is where is the location. The location is really the key thing. Tenants are more flexible because location matters. These are a couple of others that we found. One on the right is for the Habit hamburger stand. They simply say, we want convenient surface parking. We prefer it. What does that mean? It means that if there are other factors, including a great location, they're willing to modify that to look at going somewhere. Bahama Breeze on the left-hand side, same sort of thing. They say, hey, we want access to 170 parking spaces, but we're willing to consider cross-parking and we're willing to consider shared arrangements. And in fact, if the location is good enough, we'll take a valet program because they know that if that's the right location, that's where they want to be. We've seen this even in our own city recently. This is, I wouldn't say Wendy's is an earth-shattering tenant, but I think the experience that we dealt with in going through them at a site that's in front of the newly constructed Best Western on Avenue I near the freeway is illustrative. Their plan and their site didn't meet the city's minimum parking requirements, at least all alone on the site. Now, we were able to work with that to make sure that, you know, there was enough shared and so forth. But when we asked them, why do you want this if you can only provide this much parking? And they said, because the site is exactly what we want. So as we looked at that from a staff standpoint, we said, what's the alternative here? You can either have a business that locates in a location that they want, that they feel they're going to be successful in, or you allow a parking standard to say, no, the site needs to stay vacant because we're so frightened of what happens if you don't have a parking standard that we have, in some cases, rather arbitrarily come up with. So as we look at things, we say the future belongs to the nimble. Now government, and I'm going to say our parking requirements are not terribly nimble, but the private sector is. And they know that if that is a location that they want and they can work within the parameters that are there, they're going to do it. We know this because we are starting to get inquiries from places where there are large parking lots and owners of centers that are saying, what's the city's attitude to us taking some of this underutilized parking? We have users that want to be here. This is a good corridor. This is a place where we think that we can make a deal. And we believe that this is really an important consideration for us as a city. Over the next few years, I think what you're going to see is a demand for good quality locations as opposed to brand new stuff being built everywhere else. So we want to make sure that we are not impeding that opportunity from an economic standpoint. We believe that with the understanding that most tenants have of their parking demands right now, that we can actually allow this to proceed without requiring a minimum parking requirement, that the private market is going to provide it, that they understand that balance between convenience, what their customers need, and the economics associated with it. So given that, we are recommending to you that you introduce the ordinance and allow this to kind of proceed and see what kind of benefit that we can generate from it. I realize it's a different way of looking at it, but we think it's a very sound way of looking at it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Who do we have in the wings that's looking for parking or that we could put into these places?
Do you want me to? I'm not at liberty to name particular tenants.
Do we have them?
We do. We have people, and I can tell you that we have people looking very closely, for instance, at the Toys R Us Center, that in cases where they're saying this is a great location, we could do additional square footage of buildings here, we could bring you additional users, and we think that the parking is more than adequate for what's there. One thing that I think is really interesting, if you look even at this center here, which is one of our newer ones, this is Lowe's and Winco and so forth, and it doesn't show up maybe as well as it could, but the enormous amount of parking that is just left open there. If that owner of that center, or in many cases, now major tenants that actually hold the parcel in the center, if they feel that they can put some of that underutilized parking towards other uses, they're making that decision and say, what's our return on lease versus keeping a parking spot open that might get used a few times a year. They understand that better. And I think that it's...
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Yes.
They understand it better from their own self-interest.
Sure.
You know, in China, they built Beijing without parking because the people building the buildings, it was their self-interest that it was, you make more money without building parking lots. Mm-hmm. That's why government requires a certain number of parking spaces. And you're saying you don't think we should do that?
No. I'm thinking that in our situation, the market understands what the demand is here. I think that they will adequately assess that out.
Because you believe in the invisible hand of the market straightening things out, all of a sudden they're going to do the right thing?
Yeah, I actually do believe that.
Mayor,
I think that the benefit that will be derived from it is more than any potential downside.
Yeah, but the benefit to who? I mean, I don't see a huge benefit to the citizens of Lancaster having to drive around in circles looking for a parking place as if they're in New York. I mean, that's one of the advantages of having controlled parking and making sure we have enough parking for everybody. And to just throw it out without any limitation at all, is that what you're suggesting?
That is the recommendation. I believe, and of course, you know, I'll say this, if it's determined that there is some kind of failure, however that's defined, you can always reimpose them.
No,
but I don't think that's going to happen.
You can't reimpose them after it's built.
Sure, you can.
Right?
Yes.
I don't like this. I don't like how this has come up all of a sudden. I don't like the fact that there's a developer in the wings wanting less parking. This is not the way I do business in this city, and it shouldn't be the way you do it.
May I speak?
No, I don't want to hear it. I can hear anything you guys want, but I'm suggesting we table this to the next meeting.
Mayor, if I may say, I think Brian and the Planning Commission is onto something. I'm in my 48th year of commercial business, and
I don't want to hear about how you've been on the Planning Commission. What I want to say is that we do not have a developer in the wings wanting to take a project and build it, and all of a sudden we're going to throw out 30 years of ordinances that have proven themselves in many, many ways. With that in the wings, that stinks. It smells bad. It doesn't pass the smell test for us to be doing it that way. For it to just pop up all of a sudden because somebody wants to do a project without any parking limitations. Isn't that what happened here?
If I can interject, Mayor, that is not what's going on at our Planning Commission hearings, and we've worked on this for, 8 months. This is not developer-driven in the sense that I understand what you're saying. There isn't a specific developer who has said to the Planning Commission, to staff, that if you do this, we'll do that, okay? There is not that quid pro quo, all right? This whole concept is more jobs, more revenue to the city, and a better utilization of real estate that, for the most part, sits there not producing a doggone thing for the city other than vacant space. That's what it's about.
So that means we readjust how we compute the number of parking spaces that are required. It doesn't.
In effect, it takes the ordinance completely out of the system and establishes a new ordinance that the applicant indicates the appropriate parking for the use that they have proposed. There's still conditional use permit process. There's
Correct.
still review. There's all those steps are still there, but we're not saying to developer A or retailer A, you must have 37 parking spaces and the parcel will only hold 35. I mean, are we going to stop business for 2 parking spaces? I don't think so.
Well, isn't the better way to do it is to have flexibility so that the Planning Commission can determine that this particular project should have a waiver? The idea that we just leave it up to the developer how many parking spaces he wants,
No,
how does
that's not
that
the
make
point.
sense?
The way the ordinance is written, it's still reviewed by staff and it's still reviewed by the commission if it's a conditional use permit. So it's not completely wiping it out. I mean, there's still oversight.
How do we get around it being arbitrary when we decide that there has to be a certain number?
Well, it's a point of view. I don't agree that it's a bad approach. I think it's very creative. I think it's very forward-thinking. And that's what you've asked our commission to do, and that's what we're doing. So,
if I may interject something, one of the best examples that I suggest is take a look at probably the highest point in time for a retailer. And I'm going to use Lowe's as an example. Show up there during either the height of the building season or the height of the retail shopping season, which is Christmas time, and notice 30% of that parking field sits empty. So there's a clear indication that that's where there's a miss on the parking requirements. I say today, most commercial businesses have figured out, and I'm going to use a restaurant chain as an example, they have figured out the science to seats and turnover with tables to the number of parking stalls that they need today. And what they won't do is they won't underpark themselves because they know it's a loss of revenue. That's how the science has come down so tight for retail commercial business today. And so I know it's thinking outside the box. I know it's different thinking, and it's different than the past.
But didn't he just say that they're willing to give up location to have less parking?
Well, I
Said
suggest
that, didn't
I don't have any, I could care less about, he gave an example of a Wendy's potentially. That's another business that's ever changed. When we got into the business, we had no drive-through, and then it was introduced, and the average restaurant in the U.S. was running 25%. And today, the average restaurant that does quick service runs north of 60% of their business now goes through the drive-through because there's been an evolution cycle of the people's eating habits. And so if the parking requirements that we had 20 years ago doesn't fit a business today in that particular category. And I'm not trying to defend them. I just know that there's been a change with the way people do business. And retailers are pretty darn smart today about not allowing themselves to be in a position where they're underparked, and they're not going to lose market share to that. They're just not going to. And like I said,
we end up with less parking on this, right? You'll give me that.
Actually, I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case. We have developers who, at times, in fact, I'll give you an example because it's in the photo. On the left side is the Walmart Center. That actually is overparked under our requirements. But this picture, I took it on the day after Thanksgiving last year. I took it on Black Friday at about 12 noon. So I think what's happening is that you had retailers, particularly major ones, who at some point in time said, I need this much land and I need this much parking. And now what they're beginning to do is they're saying, is that land more valuable for that parking, which we pretty much know how often it's used, versus another use that might be worthwhile, and it's not going to hurt us in terms of our immediate parking field. Major tenants, particularly in shopping centers, drive the parking fields to a degree that's incredible. But they're willing to be flexible, as I noted, because they will balance that issue of location versus amount of parking. And they are incredibly good at it.
Is the old Kmart building and parking a good example of what you're talking about?
Yes, and actually, the Kmart building, I think, is an example of kind of some of the issues that we have in the city. It's actually parked at an old county standard. It's actually parked at 1 to 400, which is the former county standard for retail space.
So it doesn't apply?
Well, if a new user was to go in under the city's current code, they would have to meet the current parking requirement.
Which is what?
For normal retail, 1 to 250.
So would there be 150 less?
Right. Well, yeah. Right. In other words, if anyone was to go in with another type of a user, they would have to meet what the city's current requirements are for that.
Is there any shopping center in Lancaster that you can relate it to that we can come close to that?
That meets 1 to 250, or?
Yeah.
The Lowe's Center is built at the city's current standard of 1 to 200.
Okay.
And again, that if we take a look at Christmas time, probably the highest for that retailer, because they're a cross-functional home center. They're not at all like Home Depot, two different types of clientele. And I would say if you show up there at Christmas time, a good 30% of that parking field never gets parked.
But that means our models are bad. That
Possibly.
means we're not doing our job in regards to computing how many is the appropriate number. Because the end result of this is as soon as you have fewer parking places, as soon as parking becomes a problem, then you meter it. There is not any doubt in my mind that that's what happens next, is you meter it. And the more precious it becomes, the higher the price it becomes. What we end up doing is, yes, parking is not free. Whose back should it be borne on? Now, I totally get that maybe we require too much parking, and maybe there's not enough flexibility as to each type of use that comes in. But if you set it for a use on the conditional use permit and you build it, and then a different use takes over, you're not changing the number of parking spots that are there. That's why there's a universal aspect to it. I also think that as robotic cars start to take over, we're going to need less and less, and we can change as long as we have parking structures built into it. Who pays for the parking structures?
Well,
Isn't it better for the developers to have some kind of fee to be accumulating that money now if we're going to give them less parking now? I just think we should think this through a little better before we start giving. This is a huge gift we're giving developers. Huge. It just seems to me I want to know exactly the ramifications of it. I want to know exactly the ripple effect, and how do we come back from it if we're wrong this time? Because we're certainly, according to you, wrong last time in how we set the number of parking spots, right?
yeah, setting parking spots, particularly on individual users, is I wouldn't say that it's done in the same level of detail that a tenant themselves figures out what they need in terms of parking. What most cities do, and our city has been no different historically, is it calls 10 other cities and says, what do you require? And then it averages them out and says,
We're
are we
supposed
there
to be
or not?
different than that.
I know.
They're supposed to be
And we're
computer.
proposing something really different.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing in the proposal is give it to the developer and they'll do the right thing. You know, I know a few developers that do the right thing. I know a few who are really bad people and will never do the right thing. You know, I just don't know that approach is appropriate. I'm not saying
understand
that
the concern.
it isn't, but what you're asking, I would have preferred more preparation on this.
And I will take the hit for that. The Planning Commission's been working on it, but yes, we should have briefed you and
And I want to know
more detail.
exactly who's in the wings. I want to know that this deal is not a deal for a specific developer.
I can
No,
tell you it's not, but
not.
we will give you exactly what's in the wings. In fact, I think we have an email to you on that, but we will give that to you.
And I do appreciate the Planning Commission doing new and innovative things. I just want to know that it passes the smell test.
It passed ours.
Okay, I can appreciate that.
Who are the three people that are okay to vote on Medical Main Street?
You,
Angela,
Raj.
and Raj.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
It's,
realize.
it's Raj, Angela, and you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
So we've been briefed on Medical Main Street and how the differences happen as far as the parking and what we're going to do, and I don't think that the mayor's been briefed on that. If we were to put this through now, can he be briefed on those plans? And if it's not to his satisfaction, can we kill it after that?
With regard to Medical Main Street?
No,
or
in
this-
regards to this ordinance. If we introduce the ordinance tonight, okay, and then we have 30 days to bring it back, correct? Or longer?
Yes, we need to bring it back at least 5 days from now and no more than 30.
Is there a Medical Main Street play in this?
I'm sorry?
Is there an aspect of Medical Main Street in this?
Not that I am aware of.
I mean, this would apply to Medical Main Street,
Right.
but that's not the impetus. Quite honestly, the impetus of this is trying to be forward-thinking and looking at the next several decades to see what will be required in terms of car sharing, those kinds of things. And every business out there is realizing they need less parking.
But being briefed on Medical Main Street, we've seen the difference in the parking, and we can put different businesses in the parking lot, as in the old Kmart. We can put different businesses in there because they don't need all that parking. So I think we have a little bit more knowledge on that than the mayor does right now.
We, again, I'll take the hit for that. I apologize for that. We can get any information to you. I think you have the options of continuing, passing, doing whatever you'd like at this point. I don't know
Is there any reason for haste in this?
no,
Not that
the
I'm aware.
Planning Commission's taken several months with it, so another 30, 60, 90 days isn't going to matter.
I just want 2 weeks.
Well, we have our next meeting's the end of October, so
End
you
of
have 4
October,
weeks.
What I'd like to do is just kick it off until the next meeting.
I do have a question
Uh,
for Mr.
can we-
Ledeke, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
I'd like to know, you used the words another use when you spoke earlier. What are the possibilities with that when you use that, say another use for this, for the actual parking lot space?
Oh, it could be any other kind of user who would look. What it normally, or the questions that we've gotten in the past tend to be some kind of a pad user who wants a location because that's the spot that they want to be. Sometimes it's a restaurant. Sometimes it would be an individual tenant building otherwise. The one example I guess I would give that's most recent is the Starbucks and the associated use that were built along Valley Central Way. You're looking at that kind of an approach.
Okay, thank you.
They just want to build it out. Once you build it out, you don't have the parking. You change, right? I also agree we require way too much parking. I mean, markets have changed. Anybody have any problems with just putting it up next meeting? And that's what we'll do.
As we're set for a public hearing tonight, one approach would be to continue the public hearing to the next meeting.
So we'd leave it open and continue.
Leave it open and continue it?
Do we need to vote on that, or can I just?
No,
do
you
that?
can simply do that.
Okay, let's continue it to the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Rhonda Perez, you're up. And we have Mr. Derryberry.
Good evening,
And
Mayor
you're going to have a
Paris.
much easier time than Brian had.
I hope so. Goodness, it's good news tonight, I think. Good evening, Mayor Paris, Vice Mayor Christ, and Council, Commissioners. As requested, I'm here tonight to provide an update on the Lancaster Performing Arts Center, also commonly known as the Jewel of the Boulevard. A bit of history for you. For the past 25 years, the LPAC has hosted thousands of entertainers and performers, world-class performers, regional stars, as well as local talent. In fact, many local theater companies call LPAC home, including AV Ballet and Cedar Street Theater. But it's no secret that the LPAC has struggled to remain relevant these past few years. In a downturn economy, we are a luxury. But we have a saying in the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Department: evolve or die. Now that's pretty strong, but it basically just translates into the fact that we don't accept the status quo in this city, and part of evolving is implementing change. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year at the LPAC, and the changes I'm about to show you are beginning to pay dividends. A year and a half ago, we conceived of Zelda's 750 West. We decided to tackle the most underutilized portions of the facility first. Zelda's is a 1920s themed destination lounge located at the west end of the facility that we maybe had an event or two at a year. But now it's operating 3 days a week and before and after every show. The goal here was really to make LPAC a destination. One that you don't come to 5 minutes before a show and you don't leave 5 minutes after a show. You come with your friends, you enjoy a night out at Zelda's. We've also completely renovated the East End concession area, and this has become another venue that the community has embraced when they attend the facility. It offers quality service and does turn a profit each year. We're also continually committed to providing change and improvement in additional ways, not necessarily big and grand ways, but in this day and age, people expect to be able to print their tickets at home or bring them in and have their mobile device scanned. And as of 6 months ago, you couldn't even pick your seat at home at LPAC. You had to come to the window and pick a seat. That's all changed this year. We've recently purchased new ticketing software that allows you to do everything remotely and everything without printing. Performing arts centers tend to operate at a deficit. I think that that's just generally accepted. They're often not treated as a business, but we do treat LPAC as a business here in our community. But we're also cognizant that it needs to cater to people of all different tastes. So we worked hard the last 2 seasons to put the right team in place to manage this facility, and it's paying off in huge ways. This team shares the same goal of providing quality experiences in entertainment and hospitality. And I'm very pleased to show you this next slide. In 11-12 fiscal year, we had a 73% recovery rate for ticket sales. That is a 73% of our artist fees that we recovered. Last year, 123% were recovered. And that was accomplished by putting this team in place, getting the right booker, getting people that understand our community and what's resonating in our community. Unbeknownst to us, something that we didn't feature very often, comedians. They have been a very hot seller for us. Also, dance is a big seller for us. So we're very excited about that. The changes seem to be resonating, as you can see here.
So are you at a profit now?
We are on artist fees. So that's just one piece of the LPAC. We do still operate at a deficit, and being honest with you, I don't know that we will ever operate at a profit, but we have taken the deficit down about 40% in the last 2 years.
Okay. So is Zelda's profitable?
It's pretty early to tell. We've only been open about 7 weeks. We're still fine tweaking some things, and I think we have a lot of opportunity there. It will be. That's what I'm going to say. It will be. So not only is the LPAC growing and expanding, but so is the foundation. We were exceptionally lucky to have a leader for 25 years in Lou Bozigian, who had an amazing vision, amazing foundation behind him, and raised a lot of money for this facility and took very good care of it. Now under the leadership of Stephen Derryberry, they're pushing new boundaries as well. So I'm going to invite him up here to tell you a little bit more about that.
So one of the ways that we're trying to help bridge the gap for the deficit is raise money. That's what we're here to do, the LPAC Foundation. As Rhonda indicated, under the 25-plus years of leadership from Lou Bozigian, he really set the groundwork for what it is that we do at the foundation. And I'm pleased to be here today really to share with you what it is that we're doing now. We provide to the youth in our community arts that they would otherwise never see. This is one of the things that I find so much pride in. We really gauge what we do to go into the disadvantaged communities of the Antelope Valley, not just Lancaster, the entire Antelope Valley, the outskirts, to make sure that everyone is exposed to the arts and has an ability to see a show at the theater. I really challenge all of us in the room, if you haven't had the opportunity to do so, go to one of the Arts for Youth performances. Go see the looks on the faces of the children that are there. It's something that it'll certainly change your day, if not change your life. I know for me, it's absolutely something I'm incredibly prideful of. The other thing this year that we've done that we've never done before is we have a $5,000 performing arts scholarship to an Antelope Valley resident going to a four-year university. We gave our first one this year, $5,000, and we're dedicated to continue to do this for these students every 4 years to give them upwards of $20,000 if they can continue what it is they're doing in the college education. Recently, you may have noticed at the LPAC there's a new projection screen and computer system. that allows us to show advertisements, short clips, what it is that the city's doing. You know, we talk about the Poppy Festival and the various things that are happening in the city. You see all that there because of the partnership that we have with your Park and Recreation and Arts Department. We split that with you to continuously improve the capital that's there in the building. We really want to make sure that it remains the jewel of the Antelope Valley, that we have the ability to expose the performing arts here in the Antelope Valley, and we want to continue to raise money. I can say selfishly that in June we raised $100,000 at our gala grand auction. It was an absolutely great event. We had a great time, and we continue to do that every June. So, you know, we're here to help. We're here to help, not only the city council, the staff, but really we want to help the community, the students, the people, the disadvantaged. We want to make sure that we continue. We've got a great board behind me, and we're going to keep up the momentum. You know, we've raised a lot of money, and something we've never done before, we're reaching out to outside of this community in ways that we haven't done. We've been applying for grants, because there's really no reason why, if these large companies and nonprofit organizations are supporting the Amundsen Theater, that they wouldn't want to support the LPAC Foundation for what it is that we do in the community. We're doing the same things here in the Antelope Valley that these big, large theaters are doing in Los Angeles, and they get hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. We've never looked at that before. We're applying for those actively now, because I want to make sure that when I retire as the president from the LPAC Foundation, that we've got an endowment, let's say 7 figures, to make sure that the foundation will always be able to continue to operate and support the 15,000 kids that it is that we support every year. So I'm here to answer any questions, but thank you for allowing me to be here.
So what do you need from us?
Just support. Just support. You know, just make sure that when our you know, you're a great supporter of what we do, Mayor, and all of you are, but come to the events, enjoy the shows, enjoy the actual LPAC shows, but come to our gala events and just have a good time. You know, we're raising a lot of money and helping a lot of good kids. Yeah, and really come, we'll get you the calendar for the Arts for Youth programs. If you have the opportunity, last year we had Black Violin came. It was two violinists from an urban community. They came and they basically mixed together modern music with the violin. And it was beautiful music, but what was actually absolutely far more beautiful was the music, was the 3rd and 4th graders that filled up the auditorium at the LPAC and were on their feet, dancing, screaming, enjoying themselves to violinists who really exposed them the stories of Beethoven and things that they're learning about, and they got to see firsthand an instrument that these students probably would never see. So, you know, I'd really challenge you, if you can come to an Arts for Youth show, to really see what it is that our money goes to, because we're spending, you know, significant amount of money every year to continue to support the shows at the LPAC that allow for the students to come that can't pay for it. So that's what we're there to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. You know, anecdotally, I took my son to a dinosaur show when he was 4 at LPAC, and it was the first time he'd ever been there. And his fascination with dinosaurs after that show goes on through today. That boy can name things that have 12 syllables, but it started at the LPAC and that experience that he had there. So they really are tremendous. And STEM has now added STEAM. I don't know how aware of this you are, but it's now science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We're getting it back into the curriculum, and that's really important as well for the future of our youth. So what's next? There's always something next. We're always looking for new opportunities, new partnerships. We're going to be looking at pre- and post-show entertainment. We want to partner with businesses on the boulevard, dinner and a night out, mom and dad's night out. You know, watch the kids in the black box. You know, have the opportunity to enjoy your time together. We will be doing additional community engagement opportunities, like I said, increasing those partnerships with our community businesses, and we're going to continue that refurbishment as well. Zelda's is beautiful, and we're going to start carrying that theme throughout the facility as well. But, you know, really one thing is for sure, that facility has a lot of life in it, and we're going to push it, and it is going to continue to be the jewel in our valley that we're so very proud of. So I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
think you're up, Marvin.
AVA QMD, AVTA passed the senior transit. We gave them a grant from the AVA QMD. Today at AVTA, all 3 jurisdictions voted 6-0 to continue seniors riding for free in the Antelope Valley. And the way we structured it allows us to make an additional $600,000 and allowing our seniors, our veterans, and our disabled to ride for free. So very proud of that. Very proud of all the board of directors on those.
So Palmdale came on board?
Reluctantly, they did come on board. They wanted to put some ties to it. It didn't happen.
So we don't have to pay their part this year?
No, we paid their part last year. However, we eliminated that on the AVA QMD side. So AVTA is allowing them, they're going to bill us differently. Now they're going to bill us on a quarterly basis on a reimbursement side. So AVTA will allow the seniors to ride for free, and then they will bill the different jurisdictions for it. And along with that, we also gave the county, not the county, but the college money that allows all college students to ride for free this year. So we're allowing the college students to ride for free, the seniors to ride for free, and we're doing this all through grants. We're not doing it with anything other than grants. So it's a good way for us to do it.
Anybody actually pay?
Yeah, you do. We appreciate your advertising on the buses. Yes, we have over 3 million riders a year. We have 2 people from AVTA. You should call them up.
You got a speech ready?
Uh-oh.
So does anybody pay?
Yes, people do pay.
So is the cost per mile per passenger, how's that? Is that moving in the right direction?
It is. It's moving up, actually. Our fare box recovery ratio has improved tremendously since the fare restructure.
Good. Thank you.
And what are we on as far as our commuter, the percentage?
Close to 83%.
So we're at 83%, and the national average is 24%? So we're at 83% fare box recovery, where the national average is at 24.
What does that mean?
That means we're getting, for our commuters, we're receiving 83 cents on the dollar return for what we're putting out. National average is 24 cents per dollar. So we're at least...
That all changed when Erica came to work, didn't it?
Absolutely. I think it was due directly to Erica, you know.
Okay.
Mayor Paris, I wanted to just share with you guys. I received a call from AV Hospital administration, and they wanted since the AV Hospital nurse is going on strike for 1 day tomorrow, and I asked Mark.
So don't get sick.
Yeah, I know. So nobody should get sick. So Mark, Bizigan, and Jason, they went to. Did you guys attend a meeting? Would you want to share?
Yeah, the hospital put on a program that kind of explained what was going to happen over the next 5 days as it relates to the strike. Basically, the story they shared is that they will be open and operational, fully operational, with all the nursing staff being backfilled by a company over the next 5 days. They also expressed concern about public safety and things of that nature. So Pat Nelson was there to participate in that meeting as well. So that we hope that the first concern is that the public is, when they go to the hospital, they receive the services they need, and the hospital assured us that that was the case.
Thank you.
Have they asked for any help as far as mediation?
Not us, no. For the city perspective, from a mediation of the issues between the hospital and the union?
Well, have they asked for a federal mediator? Have they asked for any mediation from it? And can we and should we get involved?
I don't believe they have. I don't know that they didn't share with that if they did. As it relates to our involvement from a standpoint of us having an impact in the outcome of that, I don't know that it would be effective through mediation, but we'll definitely explore that with them if the request of the council.
I just think that the council should make that offer, that as far as to mediate it or to get them a mediator, there's mediation available in the valley for that. So we should make that available.
So we'll communicate that opportunity.
Mayor Paris, I don't have anything of significant information to report from the sanitation district. Held our meeting and just approved normal expenses for the last 2 months and the budget for the upcoming year. Nothing significant.
Thank you. You ever find that $1 billion?
No, they're still sitting on that money. They're unwilling to share.
How much are they sitting on?
Remember Mark told me that Ken didn't have the decimal point in the right place and everybody was aghast, but I think it was short of $6 billion.
So have we determined they have $6 billion?
Just short of $6 billion.
Floating around someplace?
I'm sorry, I had what? Well, sanitation?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was $6 billion. I knew it was several billion, but
yeah, remember Mark when you said I had that decimal point in the wrong place? I recall that, but it's just short, I think, of $6 billion.
That happened again?
That he made a mistake? Yes. What we did determine, and I got to say that they were able to show us what the money was allocated for. So the question isn't they're just sitting on the money. The question is, are they being prudent in having that much money? As an example, you could have all the money you need to replace everything over 50 years today, but that means you're not using it for other purposes, or you could save over 50 years. And the question is, are they being too prudent, if you will, have too much?
Yeah, that's a good example, because they gave us the rationale behind why they needed to have close to $6 billion in reserves. And their theory is they've come up with this, for as long as they've been in business, they've come up with this quasi-formula about how they need to keep money in reserves to be able to repair every facility they've got. And I'm sure it's based on old formulas, because again, might be like old formulas with parking. So, and then they said that they historically have had a policy when we challenged them. They said that's in their charter that they do not let any of the sanitation districts backfill or borrow against the reserves, and that's been grandfathered in their charter. So they said, because we asked it, why don't we just borrow from the reserves, pay it at market or close to market interest rates, because obviously they're placing it at much lower interest rates, and that was their comeback rationale. So it's back to that old thinking that people continue to want to use, not realizing the world is a change. Kind of like
parking.
Kind of like parking.
I think that was a shot.
I didn't say I didn't want to do it.
No, I'm just saying.
Like it being.
It's no more different, Rex, than people can't understand about the value and the purpose of green energy. There are just some people that just don't get it.
Yeah, I was listening to him last night. I didn't.
Oh, no. Oh, opened up the wrong box.
All right, back to something more serious. There's now technologies out there that can pull the fog out of the water and use it to create energy. You could actually burn it. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there's also nanotechnology out there that can make that water drinkable. I think we could probably do that anyway. I'm wondering if that $6 billion is somehow accessible for us to upgrade into those areas.
That's a great idea. Jason and I had an opportunity to meet today with someone who was talking about a similar technology, and we did not think of the Sand District as a funding and useful partner. That's a great idea.
All right. We need to talk about that. Allison, have you looked at this to see if there's some way we can force their hand? I mean, it's our money. Some of it's our money, right?
I looked at it some time ago, but I will take a look at it again, particularly with regard to new technologies to utilize the wastewater and turn it back into potable. I think that is a method that might allow us to pierce into that pot of money. So.
And is there a market for that? I mean, right now.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh, yeah.
Big time now. Things.
Yeah, but we're selling the purple pipe water as it is. I mean, does it make economic sense to
It
make
does.
it actually?
It does. Since the adjudication, trust me, things are a change afoot at the sanitation district.
So we could actually be selling the potable water to the water district.
Correct.
Or saving potable
we can make
water.
this. We could run this city at a profit if we just used our heads. Couldn't we?
We already are.
All right, good. I want to work in that direction. I'd like to work with you. And are you on sanitation too?
I'm behind Ken.
You're behind.
Yeah, there's only really two of us that show up to the meeting. The county is rarely, there's rarely anybody from the county that services, so there's usually only two people making decisions. Actually, it's been not too bad.
Is it that guy that is from?
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay. Thank you. Can we vote that we think this nursing strike is deplorable?
I think we should offer mediation for it.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think we should too, but we can't do that tonight.
We're not agendized for action.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Where's my notes? Here, take my stuff again.
City manager.
City manager.
Two announcements. First, we had probably our most successful Streets of Lancaster in the last 8 years this weekend. It's always a grueling event for staff and those, but it was great. There was not the excitement of a go-kart flipping over, but we did have some excitement in the Guns and Hoses race, where there's been a protest lodged by the Sheriff's Department for some irregularities by the Fire Department, both in terms of their tactics on the track and the very person that they possibly substituted in at the last minute. So the sheriff's been very nice about it.
Get along. What?
So we have delayed the trophy awarding until the 25th of October, until the protest could be properly ruled upon. But it really was a very nice event, and I want to give a big shout out not to just staff, but our signature sponsor, Sierra Toda, and Mr. Haas had his whole family there the entire time. He could not have been nicer, more kind, truly engaging with the racers and the crowds. He is a gift to this community, and I'd like to publicly thank Mr. Haas and his whole family. It was absolutely wonderful. We did pull out the one of flipping over a few years ago for you.
What?
We pulled the picture out of the go-kart that was flipped.
Oh, good.
Okay. We had a very...
Wait a minute. Who was responsible for kicking my nephew out of the race?
Mark?
That would not be true. That would be a person who's the track manager, but I will say about your nephew is the only person in the 8 years that I've spoken to someone truly, and I mean this, when they would get black flagged, that actually took responsibility. We have had, no offense, Pat, we've had deputies and sheriffs who haven't taken responsibility. We've had city employees. We had a city manager once who didn't take responsibility. He took responsibility, and that was refreshing. To also to Scusa as well too. So he's a good kid. So, no, our own Luke Duncan did win that race. So he will be getting a. he will be getting awarded next time. The other thing is we just had a very nice, about a month ago, event, the murals people see downtown Powwow, but I think what people haven't seen is also the exhibit in the museum, Made in America. This was over 20 years, I didn't realize this, but Edwards Air Force Base, when people would go to and get honored at the, for Lancaster for test pilots, they would commission portraits. And they would also have other memorabilia with it. But that's never been shown, apparently, outside of Edwards. So this is the first time it was shown, and even the curator, you'll see, was amazed at the reaction.
Welcome to the very first Powwow Block Party. We are celebrating 12 new murals on the boulevard. Also, the museum is celebrating its 30th year with an exhibit called Made in America.
It's just really good to be up here and enjoy what's happening today. Powwow, we got the band across the street at Beck's. It's really buzzing. We are a real downtown. The downtown started, one of our first projects was the Artist Lofts, which is directly next door to us. The reason why we did that is because artists are urban pioneers. Artists bring the community together culturally, and it's been a true partnership with the city of Lancaster.
I have been curating the NASA Armstrong Flight Research Center's Fine Art program for about the last 20 years. And so this is the newest show that we've had the privilege to bring out to the public. Some of the artwork that's never been seen are the pilot portraits of the individuals honored in Lancaster's Aerospace Walk of Honor. Each time one of our pilots was recognized in the Walk of Honor, we commissioned a portrait of that person by a California artist, Robert Schaar. This is an art gallery that is designed to show art to its best advantage. So the lighting here is spectacular, and the show has been arranged in a way that even I have never seen this art displayed before. So it's fun for me to come in and look at things that I live with.
I'd wanted to make these paintings that I thought of them as sort of little short stories about the world around me, and I wanted a protagonist who would appear in each one. For me, this sort of astronaut, this sort of became a figure from the science fiction of my youth, and so that I was really drawn to, and I wanted the astronaut to be the character that wandered around in all these worlds. That I wanted the astronaut to be wandering around in a setting that was local to where the museum is here, that sort of felt like the world that the people coming here would know and recognize, but that it also felt kind of otherworldly in a lot of ways.
This is it just continues to get better and better every year. This wasn't happening a few years ago, certainly wasn't happening without the quality of artists that we have for this program.
That's good. Thank you. City Clerk.
This is the time to address the City Council, agency, and authority on non-agendized matters. Speaker cards can be found on the back table of the council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. State law prohibits the City Council from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter may be referred to the city manager.
Thank you. Why don't you see if you can pronounce that?
Is it Deuce?
I don't know. Is that you? Come on up. Introduce yourself. And here I thought you were the boxer.
Hello, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Dulce from Antelope Valley College, here to ask a few questions from my journalism course 121. I'm here to ask a few questions on the homeless and
Take a deep breath. Okay. Do you have questions? You got a list?
my first question is, how do you feel about the homeless citizens in Lancaster?
Are you asking me or are you asking the council?
I'm asking you, Mayor.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm asking you.
Thanks.
It would depend on the homeless person, quite frankly. But how do I feel about the problem? I think that Los Angeles County has, or not Los Angeles County, I think Los Angeles City has effectively figured out a way to move their problems into the suburbs, and we're the end of the rail, so to speak. So we get a lot of them. I think that they are the center of our county is totally irresponsible in it and how they've approached it. I think when you send people up here knowing that some of them are going to die 15 to 20 years sooner because you've encouraged them to come here where there's a lack of services, I think that could, in some countries, be called a homicide. So I could go on and on about it. But at the end of the day, they're here, and I think that I'm embarrassed and ashamed that I have children living in holes out in the desert. And so I think that the vice mayor and the churches have come together with a plan that it will at least start alleviating the problem and start elevating people to a level of we're not a third world country, and nobody in our country should be living that way. And especially our children and veterans shouldn't be living that way. So in one sense, I'm proud of the fact that even though we shouldn't have to, we're recognizing the problem and doing something about it. Okay?
Also, what has been done in the last year for our homeless? I understand that you said that you are alleviating the problem, and could you please repeat that?
Well, some of the things we've done is Measure A, which the vice mayor is responsible for. He worked tirelessly on creating this program. He tried to get other people to buy in, and that was like, I think it's deplorable that Lancaster's having to do it by itself, that Palmdale has washed their hands of it, that people are able to turn their back on so many, what it turns out to be, families. The homeless we see are the people that are panhandling on the boulevard and in different parking lots. But the vast majority of these people aren't them. They're in many cases just hardworking families that haven't been able to rise up out of it. So getting the preparation ready to do Measure A was a huge thing. We've also arranged we're going to be announcing housing that I think is going to revolutionize how we deal with the homeless situation, because it can be done so inexpensively. We're going to be able to put people in houses for under $20,000 a unit, which is just remarkable. Nobody in the country has been able to do that, but we'll be announcing that here in Lancaster. So
about the parking?
Huh? And we've done that in spite of having very irresponsible, immature leadership at times. We're laughing at each other. We're not laughing at you. Okay. What else?
I understand about the Plan A.
Measure A. Yeah.
Measure A. But in the near future, what are your plans for the homeless?
Well, hopefully we will make it so that people who are homeless because they want to be. And that is a free choice. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I think that we make our own movies, and that is a movie that a lot of people seem to want to make. But I want it to be something that is by design, not something by default, that they don't have any choice about. And that's why I think within the next 24 months, anybody in Lancaster who wants a job can have a job if they're willing to do the job. I think that's a very real probability, not a possibility, but a probability. That's how much job growth will be coming to the city. Okay? Is that what you needed? Good.
Thank you.
You did perfect, except you needed an ending. It takes a long time to realize you got to have an ending too. You worked very well on the beginning. You had the middle. I want you to come back with an ending. Just dive in.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mayor, for answering my questions. Thank you, members of the council, for your time. And thank you for answering my questions about the homeless for my course, Journalism 121.
Great. Perfect. So do you write an article for the school paper?
There is no school paper.
No school paper. You go to AV College, right?
Yes.
I was on that paper. We had a paper forever. When did they get rid of the paper?
I'm not sure, this is my first semester, but I'm sure there was a story that was inappropriate. That's why they stopped it.
What?
That's the story I heard.
Must have been around this time, huh?
Wait a minute. How can you do something inappropriate? It's a free press.
Was it about 75, 76?
What? I'm sorry.
I read the article, or one of the articles, and it was pretty inappropriate.
So I'd like you to bring your journalism students back and ask us to pass a motion of some kind requesting that the college at least have a college newspaper. All right? That's craziness. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Thank you for coming. We can start a revolution right here. I mean, to begin with, it's the age of the internet. You don't even need to print the thing, right? Okay. You've come to the right place. Juan Leo? Thank you for coming, by the way. I enjoyed it. It was a whole lot more fun than parking.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I was here at the last Criminal Justice Commission, and at the end of it, Mr. Bazzigan agreed to speak with me. And so we went ahead and did that after the Criminal Justice Commission, and I just got done speaking with Mr. Bazzigan just a couple of minutes ago. And, he agreed to meet with me, or at least call me tomorrow. So I think I was coming for an update, and Mr. Bazzigan went ahead and gave that to me. He gave me an update right here in the halls, or in the chairs, or whatever you want to call it, right? So I thank you, Mr. Bazzigan, and if you feel you need any more information for your investigation, please give me a call, an email, whatever it is that you need. I'll have it for you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, how much do we pay you? Never mind. Seems like we're not expending our resources in a manner that might be conducive to the best interests of the city. Why is the city manager having these meetings?
With that gentleman?
Yeah.
I was at I don't want to get into some of the details, but I was at Criminal Justice Commission. He provided information. I told him I would have some people look at it, and I would call him back or meet with him.
Okay. I just, in all seriousness, I'm concerned about the amount of time of upper echelon staff that we allow to be sucked away from us by things that really are law enforcement issues. You know? Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything else before we wrap it up?
Mayor, if I want to remind everybody, we have Bark at the Park this weekend, right?
Yes, we do, Saturday and Sunday. And you're bringing your dog. What's that dog's name?
The little one? The
one that you
dumpster dog? Yeah, that was Bella.
You got a dumpster dog?
Yes, Rosemary acquired a dog, a rescue dog that somebody threw away in the dumpster.
I know a guy who met his wife who was in a dumpster.
anyway.
Different story.
We have time. What, do you want to? That sounds better than Ken's story.
She got into recovery. She worked out. It worked out.
Bella's recovered too. She's doing quite well. So anyway, but I just think everybody needs to come on out. 24 years, right, Mark?
Herself away.
24 years. So Rhonda's probably an expert. She's much better than I am. But Rhonda?
October 1st and 2nd from 10 to 5 on Saturday, 10 to 3 on Sunday. We normally have about 10 to 12,000 people that come out with their four-legged friends. And all well-behaved dogs on standard leashes, non-retractable leashes are forbidden, please, are invited to come out and have a good time.
Why don't you like retractable leashes?
The way they can retract, and you can't control your dog as well with a retractable leash, I'm told. Mine's only 10 pounds. She comes no matter what I use.
Is that her neck you're pulling on? You didn't kind of pull on the kid's arms, did you?
Everything's still attached.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, we don't have a meeting afterwards, right?
No closed session.
Wonderful. The city council meeting scheduled for October 11, 2016 was canceled due to special election being held. The city council meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, October 25th, 2016 at 5 p.m. Carol, I'm coming home. Are we having the count? Is that why the council meeting was?
The election actually ends at 8 o'clock, so that 8 o'clock they will run the ballots through in public view. Unlike a regular election, when you have to wait for the ballots, we should be done in an hour or less, probably.
And so are we having a celebration at Grace Resources, or?
We never get into how the parties are actually. That's a good question. I don't know who decides on parties. I would guess Marv's going to have one.
One way or another. But isn't the count finalized 4 days after that?
Go ahead, Britt.
We'll run the ballots through the counter that night, and then the election will be certified on the 25th of October. So you'll have everything on the 25th.
How are the returns?
It looks like they're running slightly ahead of where we were for the April election in terms of mail-in, which is not surprising since there is no vote at the polls. Maybe 15 to 20% ahead, maybe 15. I'll get the exact numbers. We'll send it out to you this week.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Let's go. We're adjourned.